There we go. All right. Now it seems like we're getting it. So trying to dial in my setup here. Is that good now on your end, Jay? I'm hoping. Looks good on my side. So how's the audio? Check, check, check. 1, 2, 1, 2. Wiggy, 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 wiggy. You got it, Jay? All right. Hopefully somebody can tell me if the audio is good. Happy Friday. Pretty excited about last night. That was a great premiere. The numbers were awesome. 2 weeks, we've had over 100 people watching these videos, and it's crazy. It's really cool. In the grand scheme of things, this is all still very new. I would say 4 months maybe that we've been working on this and growing this, and it's really exciting for a lot of different reasons. It's the whole YouTube thing has been around for a long time, and I never really thought, hey, let's go do it. Let's try to grow something on YouTube, and to be able to do it and grow it like it's been growing. But I think the best part for me is the feedback from people. So last night we posted that video. I've already gotten a ton of comments from people saying, hey, that the things that I was able to work on already have been great. It's only been a few hours. So I dig that. It's exciting. It's really cool to be able to break things down and I don't know, try to simplify them for people. Like there's no mystery on riding a bike. There's no mystery on the basics, on the technique. I think it's just a matter of understanding how to apply them and maybe understanding some ways that you can look into yourself and understand, hey, maybe I'm not doing this right. Maybe I need to make some changes, or, things that, from a physics and a gravity standpoint, just make a little bit more sense. So having the ability to convey that message is pretty important to me, and this platform really allows me to do it. So I dig it. It's fun. It's a matter of navigating what to do next, how to do it. That video was 20 minutes, and I didn't set out for it to be 20 minutes. I outline these videos, and we don't script them. We make a very rough outline. And the idea is, we want to keep it fresh. We want to keep it real. I don't want to script anything. I want it to be very raw and very much what I'm after. Now, the outline is to try to make sure I cover the things that I want to cover, because I can go, and I can get caught up in the moment. And, making sure that I cover all the points is important. So that's what we're trying to do. But at the same time, man, I want it to be fun. I want it to just be a place where I can kind of get lost in the moment and pretend that I'm at a ride series clinic and doing what I love to do. And it's cool when that happens. And it's funny because I think you can see it in some of the videos. At least I can see it, like where that light switch moment happens, and I just kind of start flowing and vibing with it a little bit more. So I love all the feedback. Please keep the feedback coming. And it's important, because I want to be able to make things and videos that people want to see and that are valuable. So we're working on it. We got a bunch of ideas. Right now, it's in the stages of trying to get things funded, which has been, it's a tough thing to do. These videos obviously come with a high production value, and that comes with a cost. And I think we can do it. We got some great ideas, and I think we got some people that might want to get on board. It's making it even tougher right now because we're in such a crazy time and we don't know exactly what's going to happen. But I'm really confident that we're going to get through this. We're going to get through it soon, and we're going to start to get back to the way life was. And it's going to be different, but I think it's going to be a better different, because we're going to appreciate a lot of the things that we have. We're going to appreciate things like this. And our ability to impact people and make some changes. So we're going to keep moving forward, keep doing some good things. Now, turning video last night went really well. I was excited about it. When we do ride series clinics, the turning videos are, or the turning element of the ride series is something that usually takes a very long time because it's incredibly important and there's a lot of layers, there's a lot of nuance. So we build on it a lot. And it's so fun because you get this group of 15, 20 people sometimes, and very rarely do they all get it the same. We have the outline, we have the things, that we want to get across. But what we understand is, I'm looking at this group of people, and let's say 5 of the 15 are going to get it the way I figure they will, but we got 10 plus that aren't. So we have to find a way to convey it, to get it to make sense. And it could be a story, it could be an analogy, it could be something I make up in the moment that's not even true, but it works, it gets the point across. We also have to showcase it. So we have to be able to do it. And that's where the slow motion piece of it really comes into play, because then you can start to look at it over and over again and understand all these things. And when we look at turns, it's one of the most important things. And it doesn't matter who you are or where you're at in your riding journey. It doesn't matter. You have to understand how to turn the bike. If you just want to stay upright and stay safe, you have to understand how to turn the bike. If you want to progress and go a little bit faster on certain trails, you have to understand how to turn the bike. If you're a cross-country rider, think about this from a cross-country perspective. In any given cross-country race, you could have a couple hundred turns. So to be able to get 0.2 or 0.3 of a second in even half of those turns, just imagine how much free time that is. So as a rider and from a competitive standpoint, you're going to gain so much time. Now, on the trail, I think there's a lot of ways to think about how this is going to benefit you. You're going to have more fun as a rider when you can maximize your turning effectiveness and your efficiency. You'll be able to ride with more confidence, which I think is incredibly powerful. The more confident you are as a rider, especially through turns, I think that opens up a whole new avenue for you to enjoy your experience on the bike and grow as a rider. And the reason I say that is, there's ebb and flow. So understand that, you may go out and implement some of these techniques and you see just improvement, boom, boom, boom. And that's normally how it happens. But you're going to go out and you're going to have a day where just something's not right. You wash out, you have a dumb crash, and you think, man, what the hell happened? I've had those. I still have them to this day. I have them a lot. And I think understanding there is ebb and flow with this. You can't always be making progress. There's going to be days where something's just not right. You have to understand, you have to realize that's one of those days, and you have to do the best you can. Where I'm at in my life, I don't force it. If I realize that situation's happening, I'm just going to let it go. And that might mean cruising around, doing some wheelies, maybe trying some manuals, putting myself in a position where I'm not going to get hurt. That's normally the goal. But what I'll do my next ride is I'll come back out and I'll focus on those things. And that might mean I go to a parking lot and drop some of those cones down and just get back to working on those basics. So I think always coming back to technique and where you're at with your technique and applying your technique, that's the best thing you can do. I think in any of these elements that we've talked about from the ride series, whether it be braking, lifts, drops, jumps, all of those things, if you really think about the technique, that is what is going to help you. And that's what's going to bring you along and help you make that growth. Now, I posted a couple things on Instagram, some flashbacks. I found some really cool videos that I thought were great. And the last video I posted was from, round 4 of last year's Big Mountain Enduro Series. It was at Big Sky. And it quite literally might be the best weekend I've ever had racing a bike. It was awesome. It was such a spectrum of emotion, from absolute lows to the highest of highs at the end of it. And I tried to write a decent amount about it in the description, but long story short, I was riding the 5.5 and that place was just big. It was big and nasty, and the 5.5 probably just wasn't enough bike. And the way I learned that was a pretty hard practice crash. And that's in the video. So you get some raw POV of that crash. And after that crash, I got down to the bottom and was just all out of sorts. And I kind of looked over and I saw the Firebird sitting there, and I thought, that might be what I need to do. And I didn't even know if I was going to be able to ride the next day. So I woke up on Saturday morning and I felt really good, just eerily good. And I just said, yeah, I need to get on that bird. That bird's ready. And my man Kalen went through it, got it all prepped. And I went out and I came through the first stage, which was a pretty gnarly one. And then at the end, it was wide open, like straight down the ski run, and they taped it off a little bit. And I just came ripping through it, just nuclear speed, just feeling good. And man, I got to the end and I talked to Sarah and I was like, I think that was good. I think I might be onto something. And I came down at the end of the second run and it was just clicking. And what I did was I just focused on turns. I dropped in off the start. I kept my heart rate down. I talked to myself the whole time. And all I said was, focus on turning technique. Hit every turn as well as you can. Get body position where it needs to be. Get pedal position where it needs to be. Really load in and maximize traction as much as possible. And it just worked. I mean, it got to the point where I have some POV video that's funny where I'm talking to myself just going, wait, what just happened? Like, how did I get through that turn so fast? So it's a really cool one. I would say go watch it, and it's entertaining at the very least. So let's get into a few questions that have come up, and this is a good one right here. What do you recommend for rocky, like loose-ish technical sort of turns? The technique, it comes back to the technique. Loose over hard is the hardest thing, in my opinion, to ride, because traction's at a premium. It's like you're on marbles. I come back to keep your center of mass centered, like stay over the bottom bracket as much as you can and get the bike leaned. Because if you get the bike leaned, you're going to get those side knobs biting. But if you start to lose traction and skate, you're standing on the top of the bike and you can just slide with it. Now, if you can get into a situation where you're comfortable doing that, you're a dangerous rider. When you can rip through a turn that's loose and just be okay two-wheel drifting through it, there's very few people who can get there, and it takes some time, but I think you got to get the bike leaned over. And worst comes to worst, if you slide out and fall, you're standing on top of the bike. So as long as you get it leaned over, I think you're going to see some success. So again, the loose techie turns, cues, some basic physical cues. Man, I think building up. So come in slow and start to build your confidence in those turns, and then the speed will slowly come. It's it's funny because one of the greatest quotes that I was ever told was at the Bob Bondurant School of High Performance Driving. And that quote was, speed is a byproduct of good technique. Now, you can certainly go fast without good technique. It's not going to last very long. If your technique is sound, speed will just come. It'll just slowly build. Sometimes it'll quickly build. So I really think that is a key point to think about. Now, another one that's great too is Umberto asked, any tips on training your weak turning side as good as your strong side? It's kind of funny. The reason I'm laughing about that one is my wife. So fairly new to riding, really taken to it because she's incredibly athletic. And I'm going to come back to that in a second. But for her, she has a really hard time turning right. And we're going to do some videos here soon where I'm going to set the same turning drills up that you saw in the video, and I'm going to coach her through those. So that's something that we can do together, because obviously, we can be in close quarters and I can set up some static cameras and use some GoPros to do that. But, the best tip I have is practice, is work on it. And one thing that helps in that situation is setting a camera up. So if you can set your phone up and record it from the side and from the front and from the back from multiple angles and look at the differences. And you really have to understand what the differences are. So, man, I can't turn one way. Let's say it's right. I'm uncomfortable turning right. Okay, great. We got that out of the way. Now let's really analyze, what is the problem? What are the differences? What are you doing turning to the left that you're not doing turning to the right? And if it's one thing, like if it's body bike separation, great. That's pretty easy. We can just start leaning it more. It's going to be uncomfortable, but we'll start getting there. Now, if it's a couple things, we have to figure out what are those things, and then how do we layer them and start improving on them. So I think understanding where the breakdown is with the weak side, that is very important. The next thing is, how do I fix that? So for example, if you're not leaning, like Sarah doesn't lean enough to the right. And one of the things that we have had to fix is she has her torso super high. So the problem is she's more comfortable turning to the left. And when she comes in and turns to the left, she gets her torso down, which means she has more room to move her arms. When she goes back to the right, her torso comes back. So when that happens, she doesn't have as much room to move the bike out. So these are things you have to think about. In order to fix the bike lean issue, we have to first fix where the body is in space. So these aren't all things that jump out at you. So that's where analyzing the video is really going to come into play. So hopefully that helps, and hopefully that makes opens like some insight to that. Now, another great one that somebody threw out right here is turning effectively, dropping into a steep descent in a catch berm. Now, I'm going to label that as a pretty high level maneuver, but it's certainly something that people find themselves in. That's a situation. There's one here that's awesome. I just wrote it, and I'll actually set the cameras up, and I'll break this section down. So you come in, the trail turns hard left and then hard right. You can go straight. So you drop off some rocks, and there's a couple ledgy rocks, and basically you almost intersect the trail. So you have to get turned off camber and drop into the trail as your catch berm. So there's not really a catch berm. Now, for me, in this situation and the majority of these steep descent to catch berm sort of things, I would say the number one issue is body position. So what most people are doing when it gets steep, they're shooting their hips back. And the problem is, if you're too far back, you have no traction up front. The front is the wheel of influence. So you have to have enough on the front to actually get the front to bite and turn. The other thing is, you still have to be able to move the bike over to get it where you want. So again, this comes back to me saying, dropping into a steep descent and a catch berm, I'm going to say that's a higher level move. And that's something that requires some confidence. And it requires you to be able to get back forward on the bike to make that turn. So my best advice is, find an area that isn't quite as steep and really work on body position and getting the bike turned early and dropping into that catch berm scenario. Then once you do that, what you can try to do is open up that turn, meaning you're going to come in as far left as you can if it's a right-hand turn, and get turned and get out, versus getting turned and dropping hard into that catch berm and losing all your speed. So yeah, hopefully that works and gives you some insight on that. It's, there's so many different situations. Another one out here that I run across a lot that a few people have asked about is long sustained turns. And I love those long sustained turns. And in that situation, what you need to think about is weight transfer. So I'll bring in a car scenario. When you're in a car, you have four wheels, you have four tires, and you have a large contact patch, but you have a lot of mass. So where you move that mass is going to be pretty critical. When you think about a bike, you only have two tires and your contact patch is really small. And what you need to think about is, what am I doing with that? How am I maximizing what those side knobs are going to do as far as turning goes? Well, the first thing you got to do is get leaned over. And when you have these really long flowing turns, you can carry a ton of speed in, and you can really get that bike angle over and you can stand on that outside pedal. So it's a great opportunity to really do that and work what this angle looks like. So try to explain this better. If you have a turn that's a big constant radius, okay, a long sweeping right-hand turn, what you can slowly do is start coming in with a decent amount of speed and get the bike lean over and set that lean angle and really focus on standing on the outside pedal. Really push on the outside pedal. Keep your hips over the bottom bracket as much as you can. And then what you'll slowly start to do is slowly lean the bike a little bit more. Because each time you come through, if you slowly lean the bike, you're going to realize you have more and more traction. And the more you lean the bike, the more it's going to turn. So what this means is you can consistently come in faster and faster and lean the bike over more and get more traction. Build on this. Don't just come ripping into a turn that you're fairly comfortable with and just bam, lean the thing over. You slowly want to build when you're doing that. So it's great. It's a great thing to do. Pick a few corners and really work on those corners. And that's not something everybody likes to do. It's just not sexy sometimes. But if you pick 1, 2, or 3 corners that might have caused you some issues and you really work on those, they're basically a microcosm for all these other places on the trail. Turns, there's a lot of similarities with turns. They all have their own nuance. But if you get really good at certain turns, an increasing radius, a decreasing radius, a long sweeping turn, you can start to apply that to other places. And I think that's an important thing to think about. Now, great question here. Speaking of putting enough weight up front, when you corner, how do you distribute your weight on the bar? So heavier on the outside. And this was one of the ones that I wrote down that I wanted to talk about. So your weight is going to be where it needs to be with your hands. Okay. So if I'm making a left-hand turn and I'm leaning, I'm pushing with my left hand to try to get the bike down. And I have a decent amount of weight, but I still have some weight up here. Now, here's where it gets a little bit unique. For me, that isn't my main concern. Okay. I want enough weight up front that I can control the bike. I'm thinking about my midline or my core. So for me, the idea is everything starts here. Everything starts with my hips. So I'm getting leaned over. I'm holding myself up right here. My arms, my hands, they're guiding the bike, but I'm not fully focused on those. And I think that's a main issue is people put too much weight on their hands. You want to have as much as you need, but no more. No less, but no more. And the reason is if I have just enough weight up front and something happens, I'm not instantly going to wash out or have it where it doesn't allow me to use my elbows as suspension. So if you can think of it that way, if I can come ripping through a turn and I get the bike leaned over, but I have the ability to dampen a little bit with my elbows, man, that's going to give me even more traction. So hopefully that makes sense. It's something that, I talk over and over again about being in the gym and getting stronger, like being a stronger individual. If you're a stronger person, especially everything you can't see in the mirror, you're going to be a better rider. It's not open for interpretation. It's just a fact. You're also going to be a better human being. So thinking about that, if you have 5 hours to ride, maybe, spend an hour in the gym doing some strength work and some mobility work, because that'll all help. It'll all help. Sid's asking, how do I shroud? I'm scared of losing traction. I hear you, dude. The shrouding thing, I think it's a matter of building up and understanding how much weight you need to move forward. So if I'm picking up what you're laying down here, shrouding and getting the back out, you have to be very dynamic coming in mid-turn. You have to get your weight just enough forward to get the back out, but not too far forward. So, yeah. Recommendation, steep uphill switchback turning position and technique. We were just talking about that. One of the next videos that we're going to do is uphill and downhill switchback turning position. So if you don't follow me on Instagram, follow me on Instagram at the Rich Drew. I think what you're going to do is, or what we're going to do is do one on Instagram TV. So I think I'm going to go out with Sarah and do that. Now, steep uphill switchback turning position and technique. What I would say is use everything. So what I want to do is if it's a left-hand switchback, I want to come out as far right as I can and go as high as I can and then turn down to come back up. I think too many people really slowly kind of go through the whole turn. What you want to do is almost make it almost like a question mark. I want to come in as high as I can and get turned pretty quickly. And part of that's leaning over, then open up as I come out. So hopefully that makes sense. And I think we'll be able to do the video and make it come to fruition a little bit more. You'll be able to see it a little bit more. Firing out of sharp turns, which don't have a lot of support. Great question. I've ridden behind some dudes. Scott Countryman is one of them. Joey Foresta is another one. Kyle Warner is another one. That's where that mid-turn dropping in and loading up, man, that's where it comes into play. Part of that is traction. That's one thing I love about CushCore is I can run lower tire pressure. So when I'm coming through like that long, we'll call it that long flowing constant radius turn, and then all of a sudden I just load down, I drop my hips, I push on that outside tire, I get all this traction, and just the bike bounces right out. Again, that is a confidence thing. It's a technique thing, and I think you'll get there. Now, this is kind of funny because rolling dirty overland, this goes right into your question. What do we do when other coaches offer conflicting directions, such as pedals always level? I'll turn the question back around. I just explained to you what some of the best riders in the world do to get rotated mid-turn. You can't do that if your pedals are level. You can't. And part of the problem is if you're coming through a turn and you have an issue and you have to take 1 foot off, what's going to happen? Your pedals are going to end up outside down. So it's just weird. I don't understand why you wouldn't just start there. And then that leads into, what about in a berm? It's situationally dependent. I ride a lot of berms here. And again, I have it on the list. I'm going to make a video in a very specific spot. There's a place where there's a bunch of berms back to back to back. They're not huge, but they're enough where you have a ton of support. My inside pedals up. That's how I prefer to do it because I still want to push on that outside. Now there are some, man, I've hit some BME stuff where you're ripping. I mean, you're going 40 plus miles an hour. My pedals are level because that gives me the firmest platform to stand on. But anything flat turns, anything off camber turns, for me, it's always inside pedal up. And I just think it comes back to gravity, to physics. And then again, what I'll come back to is, most of the fastest riders in the world. It's a tough one. It's a tough one here. You're gonna bait me into a comment that isn't politically correct. A lot of people are taught to say that, and I was never taught to say that. I teach what I've done as a rider my whole life, and I can show you videos of Aaron Gwynn, one of the best riders in the world. Richie Rude, one of the best riders in the world. Sam Hill, one of the best riders in the world. Watch all of those guys. None of them go through flat turns with their pedals level. None of them. So again, I'd come back to why it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But people can do what they want to do. I've heard people say that it's a little bit more comfortable. It's a little bit easier to teach people. I don't know. There's so many different things. There's so many different ways to go about it. Hi, buddy. You want to say hi? You want to say hi? We're on YouTube.
Hi, I'm my vitamin C.
You got some vitamin C? You want to hang out for a minute while I'm doing this? We're talking about turns. Did you like the turn video?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I need you to tell me what's the most important thing when you're turning.
Inside pedal up.
Inside pedal up. That's my boy. I agree. Good job. Okay, I got to finish this. Can you go back outside and hang with Mama?
But she's taking a shower.
Okay, well, can you go out there? If you're going to be in here, you got to be quiet because I got 48 people watching, dude. 48. Okay. All right. So, yeah, it's going to be conflicting a little bit. Catching a pedal on the ground definitely is the enemy. The game of bike, steel sharpens steel, dude. That is so true. That was fun. I didn't expect that to play out like it did. It just kind of happened. We left it open for something like that to happen. And those two dudes are unbelievable. And I'm really I'm really working hard to do the second episode of that here in Northwest Arkansas. So hopefully we can make that happen and then do a third and a fourth in each of their hometowns. That was it was a blast. And it was fun for me because I get to go to school and try to up my game a little bit. Those dudes put me in situations that I was very uncomfortable in, and it helps, it makes me rethink what I'm doing, and it makes me look more into what my technique is like and how to apply that technique. Like there was a couple instances where, they threw out some things that were pretty high level, and I initially didn't think that there was any chance I could do them. And then, put myself in a position, I made it happen. And I just thought about, okay, what does my technique have to look like here? What do I have to do to make this work? And it's cool because it works, So I think we're going to do some more of that. And some of the other videos coming up, but that's not, you're not helping. Can you do me a favor? Hey, can you go out here? Yeah. Come on, bud. Go hang out with Mama, please. Please. We're going to go ride some more.
I told them inside
Yeah, you did good. You did good, Mom. You did good. Yeah. So, yeah. Let me get back here. Was that Green Lantern? It was some of Green Lantern. Man, he's got all the different costumes. So, some days he's Batman. Some days he's Ant-Man. It never changes. So, yeah. He's an awesome little dude, and we're having a blast. I'm actually, I talked with him earlier, and I'm going to post it on Insta stories about his own YouTube channel. Oh my God, it was so funny. So funny. So he's ripping quite a bit. So I think we might start making a little content with him because if there's a way for that to help some other younger riders or at least motivate them, because I know that really helped him seeing people. Like he was on his balance bike and he did not want to pedal. And when we were in Big Sky, he saw a kid that was 4.5 coming down the mountain, and we got home and he instantly wanted to get on his pedal bike. So it was pretty awesome. Now, any tips for staying off the brake and not dragging it through fast, loose, unsupported corners? Man, sometimes you want to do that. There's something called trail braking. So again, this is something that I learned in a car at the Bondurant school. When you come in, it's weight balance. So if I come ripping into a turn and I go to the brakes, I want to, in a controlled manner, go to the brakes because I'm going to load the front of the bike up. I don't want to just let off. If I just instantly let off the brakes, that weight's going to shift back and I'm going to lose some of that grip up front. So what you can do is you can trail that brake. So that means you come in, grab the brake, you can slowly stay on the brake just a little bit as you go through that turn. And what that's going to help you do is keep some of that weight forward. Now, that's a pretty high level maneuver there. We're talking a lot of nuance with this, but it starts with being smooth on your inputs. So when you come ripping into that turn, the idea is you want to get your braking done in a straight line, get off the brake slowly, and then make that turn. Now, for some reason, you're driving it in really deep and you have to stay on the brakes as you're coming through the turn. Not a huge issue as long as you slowly let off that brakes as you go through. So that's something that you want to think about and you want to play around with. Rob's analogy is in like a lamb, out like a lion. And I think that's something that's very important. And I didn't get to that in the video because I think that's kind of the next level of what I talk about. But you want to be able to get into the turn under enough control that you can maybe pick up speed and get out. So if you think about this, if we do an overlay with two people, if somebody comes in super fast and then grabs the brakes, they then have to accelerate going out. If you come in slower but maintain your speed all the way through, you're probably going to be better off. Now, you may not go through faster, but I would argue you're going to expend less effort in that turn. And that's another thing to think about is, from a cross country standpoint, I've worked with some high level cross country riders. And one of the main things we focused on was turning technique. And at the very least, let's say we don't even go faster. You turn and you get through turns at the exact same speed. If you do it with less energy expenditure, you're going to have more at the end. And I think that's not just a racing situation. That's also just riding. If you're riding with friends and you want to ride more, the less energy you can output or expend in some of these situations, the more you're going to have later in the ride. And I think it's important to think about that. And what it's probably highlighting is there's a lot of layers in all this, but when you start to rationalize them, and I think that's the first thing, and that's what's great about right now is, a decent amount of people have asked, hey man, can you do like one-on-one stuff right now? I probably could, but it's dangerous. I don't want anybody to get hurt and have to go to the hospital. That's just a bad thing right now. So one thing that I'm trying to impart on people right now is watch these videos and really think about it, like really analyze what's happening, what you're trying to do. And I've always thought of it that way. I've always been a very cerebral rider. When I raced cross country, I was a big dude. Like when I started racing cross country, I was 30 pounds heavier than a lot of other people, and I was nowhere near as fit. I was never as fit. So what I had to do was I really had to focus on my turning technique and relax. Like for me, the technical parts, the turning areas, that's where I was recovering. I wasn't even thinking about it. I was relaxing. So when we got into the wide open areas where some of these other super fit dudes were relaxing, I was on the hammer trying to stay with them. So I think looking at it that way and really understanding it makes it become a little bit more clear. Enduro. One of the things with enduro that I've always tried to get across to people is the fastest rider does not always win. It's not a grip it and rip it sort of thing. It's, you need to be under control and you need to ride in control. You need to maximize the areas that you can maximize. And for me, it's like 88 to 92%. That's where I normally ride. That's the zone that I know I can ride really well and my mistakes will be very limited. And if I get up to 95%, yeah, I'm going to go faster, but I might end up making some mistakes. So, for me, it's, if I really focus on the technique, Big Sky was a prime example. I got in a zone at Big Sky. I was ripping the turns and I was ratcheting up a little bit in the turns. I was 95, 97% because I was in such a zone in the turns. But what that allowed me to do was back it down other places where my competitors, they had to charge those sections and there was a lot more risk to doing that. So I think you can look at that with everything. It's not just a race scenario. It's a riding scenario. Everybody who rides, I think they want to get better. But nobody wants to remain stagnant. It's just a matter of how important is it to you and how are you going to do it? Right now, we need the therapy of riding. And I think that's super important, especially for me. I have this playlist called Zen. I want to go out and I want to ride and I want to get the therapeutic benefits of it. But at the same time, for me, I'm always looking at where can I get better? And it may just be a couple spots. Like, here in Northwest Arkansas, there's so much trail, so much amazing trail to ride. And it's so diverse. You have everything. And I have these key spots that I dig them. They're full of nuance. They're really fun. And they're areas where they're challenging for me. The top of All American is just, it's fun. It's like a giant remote control car track. And what I love to do is try to manual through it as far as I can. And, that the manual thing's relative. Like that video, a lot of people have given me great comments on that video. And I think the progression with manuals, man, it's a huge one. It's fun because it goes on and on and on. You start to get the balance point. Then you get 15 seconds. Then you start to get, a little bit longer and you understand where your hips are and all these different things. Well, then you bring it to the trail. And it's this whole new genre where I'm trying to figure out how do I do the same thing on the trail. Then it's how do I do the same thing in some easy turns. On top of that, then I start to think about jumps, So now it's, okay, I'm going to get through some rollers and I'm going to try to manual through that. You're constantly building on it. And I think, it's really important to It's, at 73, you don't want to stay stagnant. Just little things. It's the little victories. It's, maybe getting the bike leaned over just a little bit more and really trying to keep my hips centered over the bike. It's going to be uncomfortable at first, but once you get a little bit more comfortable doing that, man, maybe it's going to get a little bit better. So yeah, all great things. Upgraded my bike from 130 to 160 climbing suffers. Yeah, that's a big jump, 130 to 160. Jessica, one thing you can do, and Rob does this, he puts an angled headset cup in. So when you went from 130 to 160, you slackened it out a little bit. And what that did was that made it a little bit slower to steer. So if you put in that angled cup set, that's going to pull a little bit of that back out. And that may help. So definitely give that a try. Yeah, it's funny. One thing I love about this sport is that there's so many people that are starting to ride that are in their 40s, their 50s, their 60s, their 70s. It's amazing. And it's so fun. And it's something that you can do for a long time. You can get some incredible therapy. You can get some amazing fitness. It's really easy on your joints. So again, I just think keep it in perspective. Don't look at other people. Don't judge yourself based on what other people are doing. That's the only thing about this that bums me out is, you want to have this drive to get a little bit better, but at the same time, you got to do you. There's things in your background. Let's say you're that person that's 55 years old and there's somebody that's exactly the same as you, but they didn't grow up playing a sport. That other 55-year-old you was a high-level soccer player. That person has this incredible ability to understand where their hips are in space. That's a huge advantage. So that's something that you really need to think about. That background of that person, that makes a big difference. So if you're thinking that and you're somebody that wants to progress, don't rule out the strength training component of it. That's important. The mobility piece, the strength piece, that alone will get you a better person. And I've been trying to wrap my head around how best to make some content on that. And we're just going to do some simple stuff here soon. We got it penciled in for next week. So Sarah and I are going to get in our garage gym and just make some simple stuff, some simple like yoga mobility things that you can try. And then simple things like push-ups and air squats. It's not crazy. Just keep it simple, but it's amazing how much that will help. Yeah. Yeah. It's funny judging yourself against what you used to do on a mountain bike. That's why I don't ride dirt bikes anymore. When I get back on a dirt bike, the problem I have is in my mind, it's me 15 years ago, and it just doesn't work that way. So it's pretty dangerous, but it definitely, it's fun. There's a lot of things that you can build on. There's so much of it. It's just, man, there's a lot. Terrence has asked a couple times about a New York clinic. Right now it's hard. We don't know what's happening. We have to get through this to see what it looks like. I would love to get to New York, and we had talked about potentially getting to New York this fall. I don't know that it's going to happen. My goal is we take Ride Series clinics to the areas that we can justify going there. And, New York State, the Northeast, down Florida, the East Coast, I definitely think it's there, and I want to do it. So the hope is to do that soon. Now, in light of that, the options are come here to Bentonville or Phoenix or Dallas. So I think what we're going to push the rest of this year is come to one of those places, so make it a destination weekend. And that may mean we do something on a Thursday or a Friday. So then you have the weekend or at least a day to ride. So we're thinking about all these things, trying to get it figured out. This has really thrown a curveball for me. It's been difficult. The clinics were my main source of income. So now I'm having to try to pivot and do everything I can. That's why Patreon is so important. So everybody supporting Patreon right now, I really appreciate that, because that's really helping our family right now. And it's helping me continue to create this content. And it gives me the opportunity to analyze that video and at least do some coaching, albeit digitally, but that's the best thing we have right now. So definitely, Terrence, keep your eyes peeled for what's coming. As soon as I have an idea, we're gonna try to do it. I'd really love to just pack the van and a trailer up and just make this huge loop all around the country, hitting all these places. So I got my fingers crossed that 2021 is going to be the year. Now we got a question right here. Is it true when you turn right, you must have your mass on the left leg? Yeah, I would agree. And part of the reason is it's going to be the majority of it. I don't want to say all of it, but yeah, if I'm turning right, I want to be pushing on that left leg. And if you watch the turning video again, if you look at the slow-mo, you'll see as I come through, I get the bike leaned over, I get my hips on the other side of the seat. And so I'm basically standing right over the top of the bottom bracket. There's still going to be a little bit left there, but I think what's important to understand is if I have an issue, when I have no weight on that inside pedal that's up, I can literally just twist it out and set it down. So that's an important component. That's not the best place to have my weight. If I'm leaning right and my weight is to the right, the problem is I'm going to fall over if something goes wrong. I want to make sure to have that weight still over the bottom bracket. So as the bike goes down, I need to still stay over here. So hopefully that makes sense. Oh, Patreon. What is Patreon? Okay, I thought everybody knew. What's funny is I didn't know either until earlier this year. If you go to the latest video, you can scroll down and you can see there's a link to Patreon. Patreon is a platform to help support artists. That's what it started as. So a lot of YouTube people, they use it to help fund videos. This stuff can get pretty expensive, and it's just an opportunity to fund what we're doing and get some benefits from it. So you'll get some behind the scenes, you'll get to see things early. So the turning video, all of the patrons saw that 2 days ago. So you get to see that stuff early. We're working on some stickers, so you're going to get some stickers. You'll get the opportunity to get some of the limited edition merchandise sooner. My plan is to start posting some nutrition and training videos there. So what I want to do is really make Patreon a place that has amazing value. So as a patron, you get a lot of value out of it. You get a lot of content that you won't find anywhere else. And it's not going to always be that high production level content, but it's going to be very valuable. So bike setup, I'm having Rob record some videos. I'm just going to try to dump all this stuff there that's really valuable. So the idea is, what we're doing, the production end of it can get really expensive, and I want to keep doing it. And it does go directly. Yeah, it does go directly to me, Terrence. Yeah, the idea is all that money goes to me. There's a small fee, obviously, from Patreon, but it's very small, and all that money is going to get shuttled back into production. So that's one thing that I wrote on there, and that's the promise that I make. That money goes right back into the production piece of it, and we have some lofty goals. It's the second level, second tiers is $5. We're $15,500 or 15,500 subscribers on YouTube. If we can get 1,000 people to support the Patreon at $5 a month, that's going to be a lot of money that we have to put into making these productions. And that's the goal. Is I want to use that money to make more content, and I want to make content that is entertaining, is positive, is professional, and that highlights places and people that are doing cool things. Like I want to do a really cool series that talks about all the trails here. So in Northwest Arkansas, there's all these amazing trails, but the problem is you don't really know where to go, and it's hard to keep up. So I'm putting together a proposal right now that I want to go out and I want to take my family out, and I want to showcase how rad this stuff is for my 4-year-old son, for my wife who's fairly new, and for me who wants to go shred stuff. And we can do it all on the same trail for the most part. So that's it. That's what we're trying to do is content. And I keep wanting to do how-tos. I want to extrapolate the how-tos, like with turning. With turning, I would love to go with each layer I talked about and do like a 5-minute video on that. So there's so many things that I want to do, and it's close. I can see it, and I know I know we're going to be able to do it because the feedback has been awesome, and it's needed. What we're doing is really needed out there. So it's just a matter of getting the people together that want to help support that. And it's coming. It's work. Nothing worth doing doesn't come without some work. So it's awesome. For this to be work, I dig it. It's rad. I could do this for a long time. I've been blessed to do a lot on two wheels, on a bike and on a motorcycle, and to be able to share it with people and give some insight to help you go out and ride more and have fun, hit trails that you maybe thought you couldn't hit. I dig that. Like that's legit. Like that stuff is so cool. And if I can do that just by sitting here and answering questions, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do it as much as I can. So it's just, it's awesome. It's a cool platform. It's a responsibility that I take very seriously. And I hope that comes across. I hope people understand that. I like it. I respect the position I'm in. I appreciate this Northwest Arkansas community, but also the community at large that has supported me and allowed me to do this. The life I live with my family, it's awesome. I dig it. And every time I go out and ride here, I run into somebody that, asks a question about one of the videos, and it's cool. Like I still get a big smile on my face, and I think, man, it's rad that's the situation. Rob and I, when we were at the Sedona Mountain Bike Festival, just cruising around talking to all these people from all over the country, some of them all over the world, all these different backgrounds. It's cool. It really is. So, and now Dex is really getting into it, and that makes it so exciting for me. And it's funny, JD just said for kids starting out mountain biking, BMX. I mean, everybody BMX. Riding BMX is it's just such an incredible advantage, I think, on a bike. And the other thing too, if you have young kids that want to ride, don't just keep them on the bike. Like, have them play soccer, have them do some gymnastics, have them do some swimming. I really think it's important for them to have spatial awareness. And this is me talking as a coach. So when we do ride series clinics and we have people in front of us that we have to coach that are newer riders, I can very quickly pinpoint those people that were athletic when they grew up. If you're any sort of an athlete growing up, football, baseball, soccer, gymnastics, things like that, martial arts, when you have an understanding of where you're at and where your hips are at in space, that just makes it so much easier for you to learn what to do as a rider and where to put your body. So, for Dex, I don't push riding on him at all. I push playing. Like, we went out and we played soccer the other day. We do some gymnastics around the house. He gets out and he plays around in our gym. There's so many different things to do. And I think that there's a time to specialize. And, when he gets to be 10, 11, 12 years old, if he's still into this, we will start to specialize even more. And I agree. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I would love to do that. I think martial arts are an amazing thing for kids to learn at an early age, especially him. He's super high strung. He's super competitive. And I think he needs an outlet for that. And he needs something where he can learn discipline. He can learn focus, all those things. So yeah, all of it. Well, and I think we're going to wrap this up. I can hear him out there. So I told him that we would go out and play and do a little bike riding. So thank you so much for everybody tuning in. This was awesome. We got 40 people right now. I dig it. I love it. We're going to start doing these more and more. I'm going to adjust the time because it's funny. I don't think about people from other countries watching, but we're going to try to adjust the time and do these a little bit more. And I would love input on what to do. I know somebody said, let's do it for jumps. Let's do it for drops. I want to do that. I definitely want to do that. And another thing that we'll do is I got the iPad with Coach's Eye on there. We'll start to figure out ways where we can do it and make it a little bit better as well. Like, get a big screen and we can work through some jumps. So it's growing. It's going to get better, I promise. So stay tuned with everything. If you don't follow on Instagram, that's a great place to go because you'll get a lot of information on what's happening. and you'll get a lot of entertainment. So that's what I'm hoping for. So happy Friday, everybody. I know times are crazy, but do everything you can to stay positive, and anything you can to put a smile on somebody's face, do it. Have a lot of grace. It's a crazy time right now, and some people are really overwhelmed, and they may not be making what we deem to be great decisions. Give them some grace, man. Understand that it's tough for a lot of people, but we're going to get through this, and I can't wait to just go out and ride more bikes, and get to a point where we can do a cool event here and get everybody that's watching here to ride, and who knows, it's going to happen. So have a great weekend, and I'll talk to everybody soon. Peace out, dumpers. I'll tell you what that means soon too, I promise.